Sabili Academy presents Islam Step by Step, Course 7, Your Pilgrimage. Sheikh Ibrahim Zaidan.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Welcome to Islam Step by Step, and with the fifth pillar of Islam, Al-Hajj, and the rituals of Hajj and how to perform Hajj. The details of that is definitely incumbent upon every Muslim to learn it, especially when they're about to perform Hajj. And as we heard, this is an obligation upon every single Muslim and Muslimah according to the means, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful. One of the things that we need to pay attention to, if a person has the means to go for Hajj, financially, physically, and they choose not to go for Hajj, this is a sinful act. And we should fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if people have the means to perform this. And again, as we said, this is an obligation only once in lifetime. One of the things to be observed in the rituals of Hajj and the traveling for Hajj is the Umrah. And the Umrah, sometimes they translate it as minor pilgrimage, but it's called Umrah. And the Umrah is very easy and simple, and it can be done anytime, unlike Hajj. So anytime throughout the year, if a person has the means, and this is an obligation once in lifetime also according to many of the people of knowledge, because of the ayah in the Quran, وَأَتِمُّ الْحَجَّ وَالْعُمْرَةَ لِلَّهِ, complete your Hajj and Umrah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Umrah involves also Al-Ihram, and the state of Al-Ihram is something that needs for us definitely to know more about it, but it's a state that a person is in, where certain permissible acts are forbidden for the person during the time of Al-Ihram, and this is a way to exalt, to make the ta'zeem and the exaltation of Mecca, the city that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose to be the best for the entire world, and to exalt the rituals of Hajj and Umrah. So for a person to observe the state of Al-Ihram, one of which is for men, as we know the way that men would wear the clothing of Al-Ihram, there is no clothing that are tailored for the body of the men. They have two sheets, one for the upper part and one for the lower part. Putting perfumes or scent is not permissible, and having relations with one's wife is not permissible, cutting the hair and the nails, wearing anything on the head. So certain things to be observed. So when a person performs Umrah, and there's also mawaqit, which is places where it's not permissible for a person going for Hajj and Umrah to pass these specific areas that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned specifically, unless they are in state of Al-Ihram. Unless a person is living closer to these areas to Mecca, then their place of Al-Ihram is from their home. But if they're coming from a distance, from Egypt, from Pakistan, from the United States, there are very specific limits where they have to perform Al-Ihram before they would cross this area. They go for Umrah to Mecca, and the Umrah is in Mecca, and the same thing for Hajj. And it's only within the Masjid al-Haram, not in Mina, not in Arafat, not in Muzdalifah, which is Hajj, but for Umrah only in al-Masjid al-Haram. With the details of that, but the Umrah basically involves al-Ihram, and to make tawaf around the house of Allah, the Kaaba, 7 times, which is always the case every time a person makes tawaf, 7 times. And then to make sa'i between as-Safa wal-Marwa, to make sa'i between as-Safa and Marwa, and then after that either shaving the head or shortening the hair, the entire head of course, and that's the end of the Umrah. As simple as that. And when we talk about the Umrah and the virtue of it, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned it, that it's expiation of sins from Umrah to Umrah. So this is one of the means of expiations of the sins, and the Prophet ﷺ made Umrahs. So we follow the way the Prophet ﷺ, and the Salah in Al-Masjid al-Haram equals to 100,000 Salah elsewhere. So this is a great virtue. And the Masjid al-Haram, according to the correct opinion among the ulama, is not just the masjid itself where the Kaaba is, but the entire city of Mecca. And this is a great virtue and a great favor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Something that we should revive our iman by having that concern to go visit the house of Allah, to perform Umrah again at any time throughout the year, and to perform Hajj in specific times. When it comes to the subject of Al-Umrah, the same thing applies for women when they travel. They should travel with a mahram. And it's worth it for a person to save money for it. and to seek rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And the details of how to make tawaf. Every time tawaf is made, it's to be made in the same way. Whether it's tawaf for Umrah, whether it's tawaf for Hajj, whether it's tawaf in general, because this is an act of ubudiyyah, acts of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be done at any time when a person would enter the house of Allah, but it's not necessarily the tahiyyah of a masjid. Tahiyyatul masjid is to pray 2 rak'ah before you sit down. But for the Masjid al-Haram, you don't have to, every time you enter the Masjid al-Haram, that you have to make tawaf. You can only pray 2 rak'ah and sit. But this is such a virtuous thing to make tawaf 7 times around the Kaaba, starting from Al-Hajar al-Aswad and ending there as one for 7 times, and then performing 2 rak'ah behind Maqam Ibrahim, which is recommended, and drinking from Zamzam, the well of Zamzam, and to reflect upon these meanings and what Ibrahim alayhi salam did and what he left his wife Hajar and his son Ismail. All of these meanings should be present in the hearts, acts of obedience to Allah, submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, beautiful meanings. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for all of us to perform the Hajj and the Umrah for the sake of Allah. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.